I woke up choking on my own breath, heart pounding, soaked in sweat. My hands were trembling, and for a few seconds, I genuinely believed they were covered in blood. I stared at them, expecting to see crimson streaks, but they were clean, still shaking, still cold. The clock next to my bed read 3:12 a.m. Just like last time, just like every time. And the worst part, I knew exactly what I'd see before I opened my eyes. The same dream, over and over. It started maybe a month ago. At first I thought it was just a fluke. I don't usually remember my dreams, but this one hit differently. It was vivid, too vivid. I was always standing at a gas station around midnight. It was raining lightly, and the sky had this strange, purplish glow from distant city lights reflecting off the clouds. The air was damp, the kind that gets into your hoodie and makes you feel heavier. The fluorescent lights overhead would flicker with this annoying, high-pitched buzz. I'd pull into a spot, get out, swipe my card, grab the nozzle, and start fueling up. Then I'd hear it, footsteps, soft, but distinct. I'd turn around. Nothing. I'd squint into the shadows between the pumps, and then he'd be there. A tall man, hooded, face in shadow. He wouldn't say a word, just step forward fast and stab me in the gut. Deep I'd fall, clutching the wound, gasping, and feel the cold concrete against my back as the blood spread. Then I'd wake up, I was gasping, always at 3:12 a.m., the same second, every single time. I told myself it was stress. I'd been working late shifts, barely sleeping, lots of caffeine, but the dream kept coming, every night, clearer. And what scared me wasn't just how real it felt, it was how familiar it felt. Like I wasn't dreaming something new, like I was remembering something I hadn't lived yet. I tried talking to my friend Paul about it. He's into all the psychology stuff. He told me it was likely just a manifestation of subconscious anxiety. You're priming your brain, he said. The more you expect to dream it, the more likely you are to keep dreaming it. Sounded logical, at least on the surface. But even he started looking concerned when I told him how consistent the dream was, how the details didn't change at all. And then one night something happened that I still don't have a good explanation for. I was driving home Ladigan and I realized I needed gas. I wasn't thinking much about it, just trying to get home. So I pulled off the main road onto this side street I didn't recognize. There was a gas station there, one I had never seen before. But the second I pulled into the lot, my stomach flipped. The rain started drizzling. The light over pump 3 flickered, just like in the dream. The same iced machine sat crooked near the door, humming faintly. I didn't even put the car in park. I slammed it into reverse and peeled out of there. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the couch in the dark, convinced that something was following me. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his silhouette. I couldn't shake the feeling that I had just escaped something, or maybe just delayed it. I became obsessed with tracking the dream. I wrote everything down in a notebook. The color of the sky, the exact time on the pump, the smell in the air like wet pavement and faint gasoline. Every detail was always the same. But then I noticed something else. The man's face. It had always been hidden in shadow. But slowly, over the next few nights, the dream changed. Not the setting or the avenged us. The face, it started becoming clearer. First, just a jawline, then eyes, familiar features, until one night I woke up screaming because I saw it fully. It was me. The man who stabbed me looked exactly like me. I couldn't eat, I barely slept. I started calling in sick to work. I disconnected my doorbell camera. I kept all the lights on at night. I stopped looking at mirrors, and still, the dream came back. Then, last Friday night it happened. I was driving back from my sister's house. I'd lost track of time. My phone battery had died. It was nearly midnight, and my gas light blinked on. The nearest station was 5 miles away. I didn't think I just pulled off the next exit and turned into the first station I saw. And there it was, the gas station. Everything about it was identical to the dream. The light, the rain, the flickering sign. My heart dropped into my stomach. I nearly threw the car into reverse again, but something stopped me. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe something darker, I don't know. But I told myself, if you just don't get out of the car, you'll be fine. I sat there watching the pump, watching the shadows. The rain tapped on the windshield like fingers. 5 minutes passed, nothing. 10, still nothing. And then I started to feel stupid. It's just a dream, I whispered. It can't control you. So I opened the door. I stepped out. The cold hit me like a slap. I pulled up my hoodie, walked to the pump, swiped my card, grabbed a nozzle. Footsteps, I froze. Not imaginary ones, not in my head. Real, wet footsteps on pavement. I spun around. Empty. The lot was still. Then I turned back to the pump and saw a reflection in my car window. Standing behind me. Not walking, not breathing. Just standing there. Same hoodie, same face. Mine. I turned again, and nothing was there. But then pain exploded in my stomach, white hot and deep. I dropped to my knees. My hands went to the wound instinctively. Wet, warm. I couldn't breathe, couldn't scream. The world tilted. I fell to my side. The pavement was cold. The blood spread fast. I remember the lights flickering above me, the sound of rain on my skin. I remember gasping, knowing this was exactly how the dream ended. But I didn't die. Someone found me. Apparently an anonymous 911 call came in. They found me barely conscious. I don't remember the ambulance. I woke up in a hospital room, bandaged up, stable, alive. The cops were confused. No sign of the attacker. No fingerprints. Surveillance footage was corrupted. The camera above the pump glitched out during the exact 3-minute window I was stabbed. When it came back online, I was already on the ground. Alone, they said it might have been a mugging, a drifter, someone on something. But I know what I saw. I know who stabbed me. It was me. And now, I'm starting to dream again. Not about the gas station. Now I dream of my bedroom. Of standing beside my own bed, watching myself sleep, holding something in my hand. And every time I wake up, I find the closet door open just a little more than the night before. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "You came back, just like you promised." I'd never seen it before in my life. It happened last fall, during a weekend trip with my girlfriend, Emily. We were driving through upstate New York, the kind of road trip people take when they want to disconnect from the noise. I didn't even want to go at first. I had work piling up, deadlines, stress, but she insisted, and I caved. We booked a small Airbnb in a quiet rural town called Elbridge, population maybe 1,000. The kind of place with one diner, no street lights, and roads that go quiet after 7 p.m. On our second day there, we were driving back from a hiking trail when Emily spotted this old antique store off the main road. It looked like it had been there forever. Weathered shingles, crooked windows, and one of those rusted wind chimes made of spoons hanging near the door. I could barely read the sign above it, but she was already getting out of the car. I followed more out of boredom than interest. The inside was like walking into someone's memory. Faded photos, dusty furniture, porcelain dolls, missing eyes, shelves packed with cracked teacups and clocks that didn't tick. The air smelled like old wood and something slightly sweet, like vanilla left too long in a jar. Emily was drawn to some vintage jewelry cabinet, but I wandered toward the back, where the lighting was dimmer and the shelves tighter. And that's when I saw her. An elderly woman, maybe in her 70s, with long gray hair and a braid and thin, wiry glasses perched on her nose. She stepped out from behind one of the shelves like she had been waiting for me, and then she just smiled. "You were earlier this time," she said. I blinked, confused. "Sorry." She tilted her head. "Last time it took you until spring to find me again. But I suppose that was before your accident." I laughed awkwardly, thinking maybe she mistook me for someone else. "I think you have me confused with someone, Shane," she said, cutting me off. "That's my name." I didn't have a name tag. I hadn't told her. I froze. "How did you know my name?" She stepped closer, slowly, like she didn't want to spook me. Her eyes were cloudy, but sharp at the same time, like she was looking through me and into something else. "You told me," she said, "when you were still James." My blood ran cold. James was my grandfather's name. I'd never told anyone this, not Emily, not even my parents, but when I was little. I used to have these dreams where I was in someone else's body, a man's body. I'd wake up smelling pipe smoke. I'd look in the mirror and see an older face with deep lines around the mouth. In those dreams, I always felt this intense sorrow, regret, and one word repeated over and over in my head: Elbridge. I never made the connection until that moment. I backed up, bumping into a shelf behind me. "Okay, seriously, what is this?" She sighed, not in frustration, but like someone who'd waited a long time to be believed. "You said you'd return. You said you had to make it right. I don't even know you." She looked at me with something like pity. "You do. Not as Shane, but once in another life. You came here in 1961. He left something behind." At that point, I didn't know whether to be terrified or fascinated. I looked around for Emily, but she was still at the front, completely unaware. I turned back to the woman. "What did I leave behind?" She walked to a nearby cabinet, opened it, and took out a small, carved wooden box. She handed it to me like it was something sacred. "You said you were hiding it from someone, that they couldn't know." I opened the box. Inside was a silver locket. It looked simple from the outside, but when I opened it, there was a tiny photograph of a woman I didn't recognize in a slip of folded yellow paper. I unfolded the paper. It read, "Forgive me. I chose the easy path." The handwriting was shaky, but something about it felt familiar. I don't remember the rest of the conversation. I know I left the shop shaken, clutching the box, not even telling Emily the full story. She asked why I looked like I'd seen a ghost. I told her I wasn't sure. I hadn't. That night I dreamed again, but it wasn't the usual haze. It was sharper. I saw a man, tall, suit jacket, hair slicked back, arguing with someone in a candlelit room. There was fear in his voice, guilt. And then I saw the old woman, younger, crying, clutching the same silver locket. He said he'd return. He promised. I woke up crying, with my hands gripping the bedsheet so hard my knuckles turned white. The next morning I told Emily we needed to leave early. I made up a work emergency. I didn't tell her about the dream, or the fact that For the first time in my life, I felt like someone was waiting for me to finish something I'd started decades before I was born. 2 weeks after we got back home, I tried calling the antique shop. The number one found online was disconnected. I even tried sending a letter to the listed address. It came back unopened, no such recipient. A month after that, I drove back to Elb. The antique store was gone. Not closed, gone. The building was boarded up. Looked like it hadn't been used in years. The sign was gone, the windows shattered. When I asked the guy at the local diner about it, he frowned and said, "You mean the old Mercer shop? That place closed down in the 80s after the owner died in a fire." When I asked for a picture, he pointed to a bulletin board with old photos of the town. And there she was, younger, but clearly her, the woman who knew my name, the woman who remembered me, from a life I don't remember living. Now, sometimes, when I walk past certain windows or mirrors at night, I catch a glimpse of someone behind me, a different face, older, sadder, watching, waiting for me to remember the rest. I hadn't heard his voice in almost 20 years until it showed up on my phone last Tuesday, whispering words he never got the chance to say. My older brother Marg died in a car crash in 2004. I was 15. He was 19 and heading home from his college orientation. That was it. Closed casket, shattered family, the whole aftermath, a blur. I don't remember much about the funeral, just that my mom collapsed when they played his favorite song. Since then, we kept his room almost untouched. My parents moved out years later, but I still visit that house. It's where I grew up. It's where I feel closest to him. Last week, I was staying at the old place alone. My wife was visiting her sister, and I figured I'd spend a quiet weekend there, going through some of the boxes in the attic that my mom asked me to sort. On the second night, around 1:30 a.m., I was watching a movie on the couch when I got a phone call. I never answered those, but something compelled me to press accept. There was no one on the line at first, just static. Then, about 4 seconds in, I heard someone breathing, soft, uneven, like they were trying not to cry. And then, a whisper, "I don't think I'm gonna make it back. Tell Mom I'm sorry." I froze, because the voice, it sounded like Mark. Not just kind of like him, exactly like him. Then the line cut out. I stared at my phone for probably a full minute before I could even move. I replayed the voicemail 3 times. Every time, it sounded more and more like him. The same tone, the same inflection, even the way he said Mom, like he always did when he was guilty about something. But here's the thing. The voicemail didn't show up in my normal inbox. It wasn't listed under recent calls. It was buried in a separate, unnamed folder I didn't even know my phone had. I only found it by accident, tapping through the settings. It didn't have a time, just the word, unknown origin. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in Mark's old room, surrounded by dusty posters and fading Polaroids, holding my phone like it might start talking again. The next morning, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I took the voicemail and ran it through some online audio matching software, something basic, nothing fancy, just to compare it to a video I had of Mark from 2003. The match came back at 97% certainty. I didn't know what to do with that. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell my parents. Later that day, I started going through the attic. I found one of Mark's old backpacks stuffed into the back of a shelf. Inside were papers, burned CDs, and a small spiral notebook. Most of it was typical college prep stuff. But in the middle of the notebook was a page with a single sentence. "If I don't make it back, check the station." No explanation, no data stat. There was only one thing the station could mean: an old train station about 15 minutes outside town. It had been closed since the late 90s. We used to go there as kids, exploring the abandoned tracks, throwing rocks, pretending we were spies. It was our spot. I hadn't been there in years. But that night, I drove out, parked just past the rusted gate, and walked up the overgrown path. The building looked like a skeleton. Windows smashed, walls covered in graffiti. Everything smelled like mold and wet wood. And then my phone buzzed. No number, no caller ID. This time it was a text. "Look under the stairs." I turned to the crumbling staircase leading down to what used to be a maintenance room. I don't know what I expected, but what I found stopped me cold. There was a metal lockbox, old, rusted, barely intact. Inside was a cassette tape and a note, folded so many times it felt like tissue. The handwriting was unmistakably Mark's. It read, "If you're reading this, I failed. I shouldn't have gone back. They're not dreams. Don't follow them." I drove home shaking. I still haven't told anyone. I don't even own a cassette player. But I ordered one. It should arrive tomorrow. I don't know what's on that tape. I don't know how any of this is even possible. But last night I had a dream. I was sitting in Mark's car. It was raining. He was driving. He looked at me panicked and said, "They made me remember." Then I woke up and my phone was on the floor with a new message from the same unknown source. Just 3 words. "It's not over." He gripped a counter with white knuckles and said, Please, Dot. Just try to remember what we talked about yesterday. But I swear I'd never seen the guy before in my life. I work at a small coffee shop tucked between a laundromat and a tax office, nothing special. Just a place for regulars, weirdos, and the occasional tired college student. It's usually slow in the mornings, which I don't mind. I like the routine. Come in, prep the machines, turn on the warm yellow lights, flip the open sign, and let the day rinse and repeat. About a month ago, this guy started coming in. Middle-aged, looked like he hadn't slept in a year. Always wore the same fraying black hoodie and carried this weathered green notebook. The first time he walked in, he just stared at me for a second too long before ordering a drip coffee black, no cream, no sugar. I remember because he said, "Let's not mess with the formula this time," which I figured was just some quirky joke. But the next day he came in again. Same look, same hoodie, same dead eyes. He walked straight to the counter, looked me up and down, and asked, "Do you remember what I told you yesterday?" I blinked. Sorry, remind me." His face dropped. Not annoyed. "That's not possible," he whispered. "You said you would. You said it'd stick this time." I tried to laugh it off, thinking maybe he had me confused with another barista. Happens sometimes. Maybe you're thinking of someone else. But he didn't laugh. He just nodded slowly, like he'd seen this before, like he was expecting that answer. "It's happening again." He paid in crumpled bills, sat in the corner, and scribbled in his notebook the entire time. The next day, same thing. Only this time, he recited my full name before I gave it. Then my birthday. Then the name of my childhood dog Max, who died when I was 9. I hadn't said any of those things aloud in years. I tried to play it cool. I said maybe he found me online. Maybe he was stalking me. He didn't deny it. He just looked miserable. "You said the same thing the last 7 times. At that point, I was unsettled, but I still thought this was some elaborate prank. Until the 5th visit. That morning, before I could open my mouth, he said, "The lights are gonna flicker, then the song on the speaker's gonna skip. You're gonna say, 'Ugh,' which of course, I didn't believe until it happened." Exactly as he said. I stared at the ceiling, stunned, as the soft indie playlist we always ran glitched into silence, then resumed a few beats behind. I looked at him and he just nodded. "You see now." I asked him what the hell was going on, and he said something that made my stomach turn. "We've had this conversation a lot, and I've tried everything. I've begged, I've screamed, I even stopped coming once. Didn't matter, the loop just reset. You forgot again." I looked around the shop, suddenly hyper-aware of everything. The smell of burnt espresso from an earlier customer. The hum of the fridge. The weird buzzing in my head like a pressure drop before a storm. "What do you mean, loop?" He held up his notebook. It was filled with notes, detailed, handwritten pages. My words. His exact time. Even the stupid joke I always made about muffins on Wednesdays. "We sell M-stale, so they do want to get too confident." He flipped to the last page and slid it toward me. It read, "Day 48, no deviation." She still doesn't remember. Reality still resets at 8:47 a.m. I checked the wall clock. 8:41, he was trembling now. I thought maybe if I got you to remember something new, anything new, it would change. Break it. But you always forget. "I'm not. This doesn't make sense," I said, heart pounding. He stood up, knocking over his chair. "You said that last time too." And then the lights went out. The second he said it, click. The entire shop went black. The hum stopped, the music cut. Everything went dead, quiet. Then, like nothing happened, the lights came back. Music resumed. A car honked outside. Customers kept chatting like nothing was wrong. The clock said 8:47. I looked up, he was gone. I swear I didn't see him leave. No one saw him leave. His coffee sat full on the table, still steaming. I thought maybe I hallucinated the whole thing. Stress, sleep, deprivation. Same hoodie, same eyes. Only now, he looked different. Thinner, paler, like he hadn't eaten in weeks. He just said, "Please, just try. Please remember this time." I wanted to scream. I wanted to tell him to leave me alone. But something inside me shifted. A flicker of something almost familiar, like a dream I'd had 100 times but never remembered when I woke up. I asked him, "Have you had this conversation already?" And for the first time, his eyes lit up. "You said it," he whispered. "You finally said it." He reached into his coat and pulled out something I still don't understand, a slip of paper. Folded, aged, like it had been through years of wear. He handed it to me. It was in my handwriting. "When you finally remember, don't trust him. He's not really stuck here with you. You're stuck here with him." Before I could ask what it meant, the lights flickered again. The song skipped. I looked at the clock, 8:47, and everything went dark. The third time I reached for the doorknob and felt like I'd already done it. I laughed it off. The 10th time I realized I hadn't stepped outside in Déjà and I couldn't remember why. It was supposed to be a solo reset trip. No phone calls, no work, just me, a book I wouldn't finish, and an old Airbnb cabin buried somewhere in the Blue Ridge Mountains. The place had 5 stars, a rustic charm, and enough isolation to make me feel like the world had hit pause. I arrived on a Monday morning, at least I think it was Monday. I remember the gravel crunching under the tires, the quiet hum of cicadas, and the handwritten welcome note on the kitchen counter that said, "Enjoy your stay. You might not want to leave." At the time, I thought it was cute. Clever. The first night I slept like a rock. No nightmares, no noise, just deep, undisturbed blackness. But on the second day, I started noticing small things. I'd go to the fridge to grab a bottle of water, and the door would already be cracked open. I'd hear soft floor creaks upstairs, even though I hadn't been up there since I arrived. Lights I didn't remember turning on were already glowing when I walked into rooms, but I brushed it off. Creaky old house, long drive, nerves. It was around the fourth day when I decided to leave early. I couldn't explain it, I just had this heaviness, a sense that something was off. The air inside felt thicker somehow, and the déjà vu started. At first it was small. I'd go to the bathroom, turn on the faucet, and feel this weird snap in my brain like, wait, didn't I already do this? But then it started happening every time I approached the front door. I'd grab my keys, I'd walk to the door, I'd reach for the knob and stop. My heart would pound, my stomach would drop, and I'd feel this crushing sense of familiarity. Like not just I've done this before, but I've done this exact thing, at this exact time, feeling this exact fear. Then, every time, I'd shake it off and tell myself I was being dramatic. But somehow, I'd never actually leave. And the strangest part, I couldn't remember what stopped me. By what I thought was day 5, I started leaving myself notes. Little reminders. You are trying to leave. Don't listen to the voice. If you're reading this, it's already happening again. But every morning I woke up, the notes were gone. Or what? One that originally read, "Get out now," had been scratched out and replaced with, "Stay or safe here." In my handwriting, I tried calling the owner. No service. Tried driving down the road, but I couldn't even make it to the car. The moment I stepped off the porch, the world would spin. My vision would blur, and I'd black out for what felt like seconds. Then I'd wake up in bed again. That's when I found the journal, hidden in a drawer under the living room coffee table. At first I thought it was part of the Airbnb's rustic charm, but it wasn't a guest book. It was a diary, and every entry was written in the same careful, looping script. Day 1, beautiful place, quiet, peaceful. Day 3, why does the door feel so heavy to open? Day 6, I think I've already read this entry. Day 9, I'm still here. Day 12, I'm not the first. There were dozens of pages, names, dates, scratched out messages. One entry was just the word run written over and over again until the pen tore through the paper. I flipped to the back, and that's when I saw my name in my own handwriting. Day. It's not a dream anymore. I dropped the book and ran to the door. I didn't care about the spinning or the blackout. I had to leave. I grabbed the knob, twisted it and felt nothing. No air, no sound. Just an overwhelming static behind my eyes. Then I blinked, and I was back in bed. Fresh clothes, coffee brewing in the kitchen, welcome note back on the counter, no journal in sight. And yet, the same pressure in my head, the same tug of familiarity. Today, I tried to mark my arm with a pen just a little extra to prove I wasn't losing my mind. But it's gone now. Skin clear, like it never happened. I'm writing this down as fast as I can. I don't know how long I have before it resets again. I don't know what triggers it. Maybe it's time, maybe it's thought, maybe it's just me realizing the truth. But every time I get close to the truth, close to the door, it resets, and I forget. Unless this time, I don't